don't you talk and share some ideas about purpose?
I want to wake people up. Now that is my purpose in life.
Joining us now is Bob Proctor, New York Times best-selling author, lecturer, and counselor. He's been described as preaching the gospel of positive thinking and maximizing human potential.
When I sat down in a den on Maplewood Lane in Glenview, Illinois, I wrote on a piece of paper, I will build a company that operates all over the world. What did Lawrence say? All men dream, but not equally. Those who dream by night in the dusty recesses of their mind wakened the day to find that it was vanity. But the dreamers of the day are dangerous men, for they may act their dream with open eyes to make it possible.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back for day 2 of celebrating Bob Proctor, his dream, work, and legacy. I'm Mikey Siller, the Chief Operating Officer and Director of Marketing for the Proctor Gallagher Institute, and I'm so thrilled to be back with you for day 2. If you missed day 1, don't worry, you can catch the replay. It's under the guide section of our Facebook group and will be for the next 6 days until Monday at midnight Eastern when all of the replays come down. So watch that as quick as you can after today's lesson. If you caught yesterday's lesson, we would love for you to share in the chat right now your biggest takeaway or aha moment from the lesson. So yesterday's lesson was really the foundation of this entire week. It was all about paradigms, the foundation of this week, and also the foundation of Bob's work. Now today, we're going to build on that with something that I'm sure everyone will be really excited to get into. And I'd love to have Araj Vasugi come on and cue that up for us. So Araj, how are you today?
I'm doing great, Mike. I think today is really foundational for this week because everything is about our goals. And our goals are really, we want them to, and Bob's going to talk about them here, the difference between really what it is, a wish and a hope, and what you really want. I remember, Mike, Bob used to always tell me, what is it that you really want? What is it that you really want? He'd always ask that question. And anytime that I'd be stuck, and he'd always say, it's because you're not operating with a goal. And I say, no, I have this. He goes, no, it's not a goal. He says a goal is an unwavering commitment to really, you're working at it as soon as you wake up in the morning. So I'm really excited for everyone for the video we're about to share with Bob, because it's very powerful, where he's talking about fantasy, theory, and fact, and really getting into really creating a beautiful image of what you really want.
Absolutely. All right, here is 20 minutes with Bob on goals and mindset, and then we'll come back and dig a little deeper.
Goals are where you are able to express your unique gift of creation. Why is goal creation an art? Well, I want you to think about it. It's the manipulation of energy, where you're causing one type of energy to move into another type of energy. Now, the energy may never have moved in that direction before until you came along. Think of that. You may just think you're just a little me in a whole world of You are something special. You are unique. You're the only one that can manipulate the energy and move it in the direction you can move it in. That is really big. Now let's think for a moment. A frequency is a level of vibration. There's millions of frequencies, okay? Absolutely, there's an infinite number of frequencies. Now I think we understand this when it comes to our telephones. We understand it in a lot of different areas, but we don't really relate it to our life. I want you to think about this. Every frequency is hooked up to the one above and the one below. There's an infinite number of frequencies, and they're hooked up to the one above and the one below. Now let this X represent where you are. Let it represent where you are. Remember in those 6 phases we said, where am I? Well, this is what you want to look at, okay? You take an honest look at where you are, because this is where this pops in. And this is the part that we really want to look at. Now, pay close attention. All these levels are levels of vibration. They're levels of awareness. You have the ability, if you let that X represent where you are right now, you can look back in your life and you can see how you got here. And it's a real good idea to do that. Most people don't, but we recommend you should. Take a close look. What kind of an environment did you grow up in? What was going on around you? Now you sit there and you look and you say, but that's where I want to go. And you point to a place. But I don't know how to do that. I would never be able to do that. I don't have the money. So we let it fade. What we want to start to understand is that we don't have to let it fade. You see, if we can see it in our mind, we're capable of doing it. Now, to move to a higher frequency of thought, and that's what that would be doing, you've got to decide. It's got to be your consent. It's got to be your decision. I couldn't do it for you. Nobody can do it for me. We've got to move to this higher frequency, and then we have to adapt to the new feelings this new frequency represents. It's not an easy thing to do. At the suggestion of changing the paradigm, a suggestion of a move, the paradigm goes crazy. That's where all kinds of crazy things happen. And it's like a little voice in talking to us and telling us why we can't do it. And it'll continually fight you, trying to stop you. That's why so many people don't make moves. They're in a job they don't like and they're afraid to quit. They're living in a city or a town where they don't even love. And they want to move, but they never move. They're always afraid to. Why? It's the paradigm. So let's go back and look. That's where we're at. We knew that. And then we say, that's what we're thinking of up here. What we want to know is that that's a place. And we say, that's where I'm going to go. That's where I'm going. Here we are here. We know how we got here. And we know that there is a place. There is a place. But how do you get there? Steve Jobs said something that really should change our thinking a lot. He pointed out, you cannot connect the dots looking ahead or forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. Remember we said this is where you are, and you can look back and you see how you got here. You see all those changes that took place. But you can't see the changes that have to take place for you to get there. Understand this. You can get there. You can get there. Now this is the big deal. This is the fourth step. This is the critical choice. Say, I'm doing it. And so you start. And you know what happens? Things start to change. As Jobs said, it falls into place. Those things happen. And then you get there. And here's something else. When you get there, you'll realize you could have gone there. Now, you've learned something here that's going to stay with you for the rest of your life. Okay? You have learned that regardless of what it is that you're after, that it can be. It can be done. You can do it. And that is the great lesson here. It's not what you got out of it. It's not what you won. It's not building the company or earning the money. It's the lesson that you learned. So let's go back and see how most people, with this understanding, how do most people operate? Okay? Well, here's the ABCs of goals. The ABC. A is doing what you already know how to do. B is going and doing what you think you can do. C is when you stretch. That is when you say, this is where I'm going. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it. Okay? Now what we're doing here, we're working backwards, helping you understand where the problem's been in the past and what's going on. Here we are here. A goal is you know how to do it. And that's what some people set. I had a young guy, I've been telling the story for years, but it's such a good example. He came up to me and he said, Bob, can I talk to you about a goal? And I said, sure. I said, what do you want? And he said, I want to buy a new car. And I said, okay, well, good goal if that's what you want. And I said, what kind of a car do you want? And he said, a Pontiac. And I said, I've had Pontiacs, they're good cars. And I said, what are you driving now? And he said, a Pontiac. And I was thinking, oh, okay, here we go. And I said, how old is the car? He said, 4 years old. I said, how long you had it? And he said, 4 years. I said, you're telling me then that you got a new Pontiac 4 years ago? He said, that's right. Well, I said, you've known for 4 years how to get a new Pontiac. That doesn't constitute a goal. Well, what do you do then? Well, you got to go to the next phase. And so you step up and you take a look at the B goal. What's the B goal? You say, that's what I think I can do. If this happens, and if I get that money, and if I can put this in place and put that, and we're thinking it through. It's our intellect we're using. You don't go after the big goals with your intellect. That's not where you want. It doesn't last. Now, if you want to win, you've got to get up where you fantasize. That's where you use your higher faculties. But we've been taught as kids, you don't do that. That's a no-no. Little kids do that in kindergarten, in early grades, and, as little tiny kids. Adults don't do that. So what do most people do? They believe that they shouldn't be fantasizing. They go from what they know, they get motivated, and then they go after what they think they can do. But there's no inspiration in that. So pretty soon they let go of that and they're back down here again. And then they go and take another run at it. Now people do this for so long and they get nowhere. If you don't go after what you really want, you're never going to win. Now, if you're going to get it, you've got to understand there's 3 phases to creation. We just showed you, we're working this backwards, we showed you how it's happening. You're working with laws and you're working with the law of vibration.
Here's the 3 phases of creation, insofar as you're concerned. They're the 3 phases. And if you're going after something you want, that's where you start, right at the top. You start out with fantasy. Everything began as a fantasy. This hotel was nothing but a fantasy. The clothes you're wearing, it was just an idea in somebody's mind. The jewelry that you have, the automobile that you're driving, your computer. And you know that. You know that instinctively, you know that. But, think about it. Or it's somebody else. I mean, they can. It's like we say, you're extras in somebody's movie. Well, we've got to make up our mind that we're going to be the star of our own movie. I'm not saying go on an ego trip. It's not an ego trip at all. It's just a healthy, conscious awareness. And that's what you're going to do. But since you haven't been doing it every day, you've got to start. Well, then you have to discipline yourself to certain exercises. Where do you start? You start right here by building a fantasy. So you're going to start living with that idea that you've selected, and you're going to take times, and you may not operate all the time as if you're already there. That's the objective. But, our mind's not programmed to do that right at the start. So, take breaks where you actually visualize. Now, the real key to this is get emotionally involved. You've got to get emotionally involved. Consider that you're acting. You're an actor. Now, you may say, well, I've never acted. Well, you're acting all the time. There's a great book, Stella Adler's book, The Art of Acting. I think everybody should get it because Stella Adler didn't actually write a book. She had different classes as she trained people in method acting. And when she died, a man named Kissel took all her lessons, put it together in a book. So when you read the book, what you're actually doing is going to Stella Adler's acting classes. And she was one of the best in the world. Well, you become the actor, and you act, in your own mind. You can be doing this in a crowded subway, and you see yourself in that role. You see yourself actually doing it, okay? You build the fantasy. Now, just play with that. You might fool around with that for a week or two. Just keep, until you start to become familiar with going there. And you'll find you can go there in a millisecond just like that. Now, keep this in mind. As you're building that fantasy, you're tucking it into cells in your brain. Whole group of cells. Each little aspect of it's in a cell in your brain. Now, when you think of it, all those cells are activated and the picture flashes on the screen of the mind. That is the purpose of your goal card. You write your goal on the card. You guess at the date that it's going to manifest. You could be out by a long shot. But you write the date, and then it begins, I am happy and grateful now that. It's got to be in present tense. It's now. It's not in the future. It's not going to happen. It is so. It is. So I'm happy and grateful now that. Now, don't write on the card until you write it on a piece of paper a few times. Make sure it's in present tense and all positive, like it's happened. In as few words as possible, okay? You're guessing at the date. Just sort of a feeling, okay? Now, when you put that card in your pocket or in your purse, every time you put your hand in your pocket and touch the card, sensory factor touch is affected, a life message goes rifle firing through your central nervous system. It strikes a cell in your brain that is activated, is hooked up to all the other cells, and a whole works of them. and they start increasing amplitude of vibration. And as they do that, the images that's in them comes on the screen of the mind. Now, this happens at warp speed. You touch, the picture's there. Every time you bang, the picture's there. That's the useful purpose of the gold card. That's why we put it in a little sleeve. I remember the day that they used to have machines in the airport where you could put, I think, a quarter in, and you'd get this thing, and it would be two pieces of plastic. They were sticky on one side. And I'd put my goal in between them and then put them together. It was put for movies or for pictures. They sold them in airports. Well, I put that in my pocket, but then all the sticky stuff would work itself out to the edge, and it'd be full of lint and dirty in it, and it was loose in my pocket. You know, it was just a mess all the time. So one day at Nagel Conant, I got the idea, if we had a sleeve made, and I phoned Dorothy Para, who run the warehouse and bought everything for the company. I said, could you get me, and I described this, and she said, yeah, I probably can. Well, she found them. We must have given millions of these things away all over the world. Carry it loose in your purse or your pocket. And then it's got Lawrence's quote on it. I like it. You know, this I did. Right? Well, now you've got the fantasy. Now what you want to do, you got to put it in print. How do you do that? Well, you've got to take it and you've got to activate another intellectual factor. See, the intellectual factor of imagination was used to build the fantasy. Now you're going to theory. Now you activate the reasoning factor. And you start to change this from fantasy into something that's intellectual. It's real in your mind. And you start to describe it. You start to put it in words. And each word represents a picture. So what you're doing is you're painting your picture now in words. That's what a book is. It's a picture painted in words. Okay? That's why sometimes you go to a movie when you've read a book and you're so disappointed the movie isn't anything like the book. The truth is the movie is like the book, but it's not like the movie that you built when you were reading the book. You see? You didn't have a budget. There was no budget restraints. I mean, you had whatever character you wanted, it was yours. It was all done in your mind. So we got this beautiful picture, and we go to the movies, and we think, geez, it was such a disappointment. It wasn't anywhere near like the book. It was like the book. It wasn't like your movie, though. Well, you're taking your movie now, and you're putting it into words. Now, there's a test you've got to pass before the theory becomes a goal. See? To turn that into a goal, you have to pass a test. You have to, first of all, ask, am I able? Am I able to do that? Well, if you really understand the true nature of who you are, if you stop and think about anyone that's ever done anything, just take the example, the 4 or 5 examples that we put in this workbook. And we did enough research to grab enough of their bio background so that you'll see they're very ordinary folks. But they did very extraordinary things. Well, we're ordinary folks. We can do extraordinary things. And we got to get rid of the idea that they can, but I can't. Well, she's so much better. He's so much. No. They're just doing it better than you, but you can do it better than you're doing it. Yet, since most of our behavior is habitual, what we want to do is form habits. What do you got those 6 points for? I told you to put them together in pairs. Change 2 things at a time.
तुमच्यासारखेच सेन्सिटिव्ह एरिया हेअर रिमूव्हल माझ्यासाठी सुद्धा खूप गरजेचे आहे. यासाठीच आय ट्रस्ट वीट. हे आहे डर्मेटॉलॉजिकली टेस्टेड आणि पेन फ्री सोल्युशन जे देते स्मूथ स्किन घरच्या घरी. सेन्सिटिव्ह एरियासाठी जस्ट वीट इट.
Take you maybe a month. Doesn't take long. And it's so simple. You say, is this all I have to do? That's all you have to do. Wander around with an attitude of gratitude. I love Waddle said the entire process, and you want to remember this, the entire process of mental adjustment and atonement can be summed up in one word, gratitude. Well, I'm going to tell you there's times when I need a mental adjustment. I don't know about you, but I would imagine there's times when you do. Somebody's upset you, something's upset you, things aren't just working out right. You need a mental adjustment. Check your attitude. You have an attitude of gratitude. And as you do this mental adjustment, I don't care how big the problem is, I don't care how it's getting to you, gratitude fixes it. Gratitude hooks you up your source of supply. Gratitude brings order to your mind. The entire process of mental adjustment and atonement can be summed up in one word: gratitude. So, am I able to do this? We've got power that goes way beyond the scope of our imagination. Doesn't matter how many are against you. It's like the person said, one person with God's a majority. I guess you got all the power in the universe on your side. So you've got to come up. I don't really understand it, but yes, I believe I'm able. If I was figuring out how to use all this power, then you have to ask the key one: am I willing? Am I willing? I have traveled all night in terrible snowstorms, no sleep, to get to a place to do an all-day seminar. I could tell you some of the wildest stories that we've gone through. You had to do it. You got to do it. You got to do it. You got to be willing to pay the price. And you don't know what the price is. But you got to be willing to pay. Are you willing to pay the price? Yeah, I'm willing. You see, it's not to get whatever we're going after. It's to grow. It's the growth that you experience as you go after it. That is the deal. You become such a much more in tune individual. And the second you say, I'm able, I'm willing, and I'm able, and I'm going to do it, boom, it becomes a goal. You're going to be taking the goal and you're going to plant it in the garden of the mind. That part of you is a part of everything. That's the infinite side of you. And get this, it operates one way. It is totally deductive. In other words, it does not have the ability to change anything. Exactly what you plant, that's what you're going to get. It cannot change it. If it's not, the picture is not complete, then the manifestation is not going to be complete. If there's all kinds of doubt piled into it, it'll probably dissolve it. Whatever you plant, that's what you're going to get. Whatever you're afraid of, that's what will be delivered. This is pretty important stuff. Now, when you plant it there and you understand this, that's when it begins to move into form and becomes a fact. So you go from fantasy to theory to fact. Now, when you do that, you're in the position to build bigger and better better fantasies. So you're always growing and moving to a higher plane. That is the creative process. It's very simple. You can certainly teach it to a child. It could be applied to a report card. It could be applied to skiing, racing, painting, earning money, building a business, the position that you're going after, the level in your company. Can be applied to anything, and you do not have to know how to do it. I maintain you don't even have to believe it to start. Because when I wrote down that I was going to have $25,000, I did not believe that. I thought that was a crock. There's no way I would ever have $25,000. I didn't even know anybody with that kind of money. But I did what he said. I did exactly what he said. And you know what I did?
स्वच्छ केलेलं टॉयलेट प्रत्येक यूज नंतर घाण होत असतं. आता टॉयलेट नेहमी स्वच्छ ठेवा. ट्राय हार्पिक फ्लश मॅटिक हे फ्लश टँक मध्ये टाका. याचा कलर्ड ॲक्शन फॉर्म्युला प्रत्येक फ्लश सोबत टॉयलेट स्वच्छ करतो. आता प्रत्येक ब्लॉक चालतो 240 फ्लश पर्यंत. टॉयलेट नेहमी सहजपणे स्वच्छ ठेवा. हार्पिक फ्लश मॅटिक आणा.
I did. I started to believe it. If you tell yourself a lie often enough, you're going to believe it. Believe, and your belief will create the fact. So do you want to change your belief about you? Do you want to believe you're better than you've been demonstrating? I do. I would imagine you do too. This is the way you're going to do it. Follow this process. This is the creative process.
All right, we're back, and what a great lesson from Bob on goals. Araj, I would love to break this down and dig in a little deeper with you. I'm sure everyone has a general idea in their mind of what a goal is, but it's usually a pretty shallow idea of what a goal actually is, which we just learned from Bob. So what do you understand about goals now from working with Bob for so long that maybe you didn't understand 10 years ago?
That's a great question. For me now, everything is about the goal. Where before it was like a wish or a hope, I'm so happy and grateful, wrote on a card. But when I wasn't working on it every day, I knew it was not a goal. Even back then I knew it wasn't a goal, but I kept doing it. I just thought, okay, I'll just keep reading it. So I thought I was really goal setting by writing it down. But the goal, the prequel to everything is our thinking. So even with goals, it's, do I really want this? And I love how Bob asked the question of, am I willing? That question right there is, am I willing to trade my time for this goal? Am I willing to trade my life for this goal? Because that's what we're doing with our goals. The goals have to be worthy of us. And what's so interesting now, just in January, Bob and I were talking, and we were talking about goals. And I said, when you're building the fantasy like he was talking about, what happens is, from my understanding, I was asking Bob this, and I said, Bob, from my understanding, it's about burning the idea in your mind. And I said, I think that's what I used to not do. I'd have a goal, and then I'd get into like what I thought I could do in terms of activities. But he said, until you burn it in your mind, it just stays into a want. We have to turn it into a desire. And I said, what are a couple things that you would recommend for somebody to burn it in their mind? He said, visualize throughout the day of your goal already fulfilled. Really auto-suggest your goal throughout the day, saying it over and over and over again with emotion, because the key is getting emotionally involved. Now, everything I do, I have to be emotionally involved, because I know if I'm not emotionally involved, I'm just gathering information. I'm doing it on an intellectual level. And Mike, you and I have talked about how important it is to get emotionally involved.
Yep. Araj, yesterday we went over paradigms. And one of the reasons that that's so important that we studied paradigms before we got into goals is because you're not always going to be motivated, and it's not always going to be easy. Sometimes you're going to run into obstacles, or it's going to be hard to stay committed to your goal. And if you haven't changed the paradigm, you're going to go right back to comfort, right back to safety, and just drop the goal. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, the paradigm right now is stronger than the goal. Let's say we just set a goal. Right now, the paradigm's stronger. The paradigm is a habitual behavior. It is your present conditioning. So whenever we set a goal, we have to first accept the idea, adopt the idea, and sell ourselves on the idea. When we do, it just seeps deep into our subconscious mind. Now we're starting to have a fair fight against the paradigm, as I put it, because the paradigm is going to put a royal battle. That's why our dream and our goal has to be an obsessive, relentless drive towards achieving that. Because if our paradigm is stronger than our goal, the paradigm will win. Now, if our dream is stronger, the dream is going to knock the paradigm down. You're going to knock the walls down, like Bob was talking about yesterday on the paradigm shift. And when you knock the walls down, because your desire is so much greater than your present circumstances, your why is so much greater than your why not, that's how you overcome the paradigm. And I don't know how long it takes. For people, what is a paradigm? The only way you could change a paradigm is through spaced repetition and elite level coaching, or an emotional impact. 9 out of 10 times an emotional impact is something negative. So we've got to really keep the goal in our mind. And to me, our goal is our best accountability partner. It is our best partner. The reason I say that is, when you have a definite goal, if everyone just sits back and thinks about something they've achieved that they really wanted at some time, think about how on tune your attitude was. Think about how disciplined you were. Think about how excited you were to attack the day. Well, that's why our goal is our best accountability partner.
I love that. We've heard Bob say thousands of times, what do you want? what do you really want? He asked this question, but it's not always an easy question to answer. In fact, you know, from working with so many of our clients over the years, that it can be a really hard question to answer. People are looking at that question through a prism of their current results sometimes. So they're saying, okay, what do I really want? As long as it fits within the time I have available right now, the money I have available right now, the relationships I have around me right now, and what they're going to think of me. And then they box themselves into not really what they want, but as Bob just said, what they think they can get with their current circumstances. So how do they get beyond those current circumstances to start dreaming and set a goal that really is worthy of them?
You know, every time I would talk to Bob about my goals, if I was, you know, just waffling, just drifting a little, and I was just operating from my present paradigm, wasn't doing bad, was doing good, but wasn't doing like with an inspired idea. And he'd always say the starting point is get out a piece of paper, forget about everything else, get really relaxed and write out in the present tense how you want to live. And so I would write out a script of my life, how I want to live. And that's what I encourage everyone to do. Because before, we have to first get it on paper before we can get it in our mind. And that's what Bob used to always tell me. He said, writing creates feelings, feelings create actions, actions create results. And he said, don't judge what you write on paper. Build a beautiful image. And if it's not what you really want, throw it away. Get out another piece of paper and write it again. That is the starting point. The starting point is our wants. You know, our wants come from the essence of who we are. Like Bob taught us that, Mike, that everything is for expansion and fuller expression. That means that my job is to continue to get better. Your job is to get better. He'd always say, you know, if you're a runner, you want to run faster. If you want to jump, you want to jump higher. If you want to sell, you want to sell more. If you have money, you want to earn more. And he would always talk to me about that. That's all comes from our wants.
If you could condense everything you learned about goals from Bob into just a couple of things that everybody should take away from today's lesson, what would it be?
Do it now. That would be the best advice I could tell you. We don't know how we're going to do it. So don't even get into the how. It's a waste of time. But just go. You know, that's why we have to understand it. We just got to get into action. W. Clement Stone had this motto, and he was one of the most successful insurance salesmen of all time. And allegedly, he was the most positive person you could be around. And he had this message, do it now, do it now, do it now. And that's what Bob would always tell me. He'd get off the phone with me and he'd say, do it now, do it now. And he got that into me as a brain tattoo. So that's my best advice, because if we already know what to do, then the goal is not big enough. We want goals that are going to get us to grow. Bob used to tell me this all the time. Goals are not about getting, they're about growing. It's about the person we become in the process that is the greatest gift of the goal. So wherever you are right now, do it now.
I love that. There's so much value in that. I know there's so many times where there's something that I wanted to do and I put it off and I made it up in my mind that it was going to be harder or take longer than it really took. And then by the time I actually committed and got it done, I looked back and thought, why didn't I do that sooner? That was not some big deal. So I love that. I love that idea of building momentum. Let's bring mindset in. What role does mindset play in goals, both setting and achieving?
Well, everything, you know, and I'm more interested in achieving. You know, goal setting is an intellectual exercise. Goal achieving is a lawful process. Everything happens by law, not luck, as Bob, you know, his whole career talked about. You know, so 95% of success is mindset, 5% is strategy. Like I said earlier, thoughts are the prequel to anything we see in our reality. You know, we had to think about doing this event before it became a reality. Now, when you permit present results to control your thinking, your goals cannot be achieved. Your life cannot improve. An aware person is always thinking into results no matter the situation. So what we're saying here is we're not letting the outside dictate what goal I'm going to achieve. We say, this is what I'm doing and I'm going to commit to it and I'm doing it no matter what. I have this no matter what attitude. And like Bob said, all you have to do to achieve a goal is match the frequency. You've got to think and act like that person. And when we think and act like that person, all of a sudden we start attracting to ourselves everything that's in harmony with that new version of us.
I love it. Raj, I'm going to give you the final word. Anything else you want to share on goals? And then also, I know you have a daily assignment for us.
Sure. Goal setting and goal achieving are so important. Until you become proficient at that and really commit to the process of writing out what it is that I really want, you're going to be drifting no matter what. And if you could look at it right now, am I drifting or am I really committed? Am I waking up really obsessed with what I'm doing on the daily activities to really achieve my goal? And you want to look at your goals like you're chopping down a tree. You don't do it in one chop. You do 3 to 6 goal achieving activities every day. 3 to 6 every day, but you want to think and act like that person. So you're always operating from the frequency of you already achieving that goal. How would that person think? And as you do that, you're going to draw it into you so fast. And like Bob said, when you fuse with the goal, you become one with it. When you become one with it, it becomes one with you. And that will bring it to you at an exponential rate. All right, Mike, so today's exercise, I want everyone to get clear on what they want. So what I'd like everyone to do is write out your goal in the present tense. And it's going to be a 2-step exercise. For example, if somebody wants to improve their income, and I'm making this up, but they would write it out, I'm so happy and grateful now that I am earning $50,000 or more every month, and I love it. I am happy, I am healthy, and I am wealthy, and it is done. Now, we want to put it is done because we want to come from the wish fulfilled. And then after they write it, I want them to attach this to their success advisor because I want them to be aware of what their goals are. And then part 2 is I want you to say this in front of the mirror with emotion. When we emotionalize it, we're burning the idea in the mind. Until we emotionalize it, it will not happen. One of the common questions I get is, how do I emotionalize it? It's emotion. And you want to do it from different angles. Auto-suggestion is one, which I just shared with you, which is a suggestion from yourself to yourself. Sitting down every couple hours, having an alarm on your phone and visualizing, letting it go off. And that means every 2 hours, I'm going to visualize and see myself as that person. All right, Mike, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
All right, I am going to wrap this up, but first you just dropped 2 really great gold nuggets that I can't let pass by and someone not realize they were there. So I'm going to point them out and let you go a little deeper just in case. You gave 2. One was coming from the wish fulfilled. I want you to explain what that means for everyone. What does it mean to come from the wish fulfilled? And the second is to fuse with an idea. How do I fuse with an idea? So those 2 things before we wrap.
Sure. So coming from the wish fulfilled is already being there. You're already there. It has already happened. When we accept an idea, it is done. So that's why I said we want to accept, adopt, and sell ourselves on the idea first. Everything you think about now is from you already being, using my example of $50,000 a month. I'm acting like the person who earns 50. My discipline is like the person who earns 50. My imagination is like the person who earns 50. My activities are like that person. So you're actually going to channel in that person. You're going to start coming on that frequency and you're going to get ideas way up here instead of where your present circumstances are. It is so important we do that. Now, one other thing about goals, okay, this is very important, is, people have heard come from the wish fulfilled. But then the next thing we have to do is we have to think and act like that person. It's how do I need to behave? What are my behaviors? Are they aligned with my present circumstances or are my behaviors growing into the person up here? So we want to make sure we're changing our self-identity. I always tell people our identity plus our impact is going to create the quantum leaps in our life. It's identity plus impact. And as you do that, you're going to create massive goals and you're going to achieve massive goals and you're going to really create a massive quantum leap.
All right. Thanks, Raj. This has been an incredibly powerful lesson today. Raj just gave you an excellent assignment. And like he said yesterday, it's easy to do and it's easy not to do. So make sure that you take the time, do the daily assignment, take a picture of it, tag your success advisor, upload it to the Facebook group so that we can be your accountability partner and really be a strong community this week. You can catch the replay right after this is over. It'll also be under the guide section of the Facebook group until Monday at midnight Eastern. And we will see you back here tomorrow at 11 a.m. Eastern for another incredible lesson, my personal favorite lesson of Bob's. And we'll see you then. Raj, thanks so much.
Thanks, Mike.